Perfect. We've got a couple of people who may be coming. They haven't arrived yet. They may or may not show up, just so you know. So welcome. I think I've said hello to most of you. I'm Michael from Box of Crayons. We're going to get into this in 2 seconds, but before I do, I just want to point out Matt and Pete at the back here who are filming this. They're filming it because we're going to use this as an internal training piece. So this is not going to appear on YouTube or anything like that. It's just an internal piece like that. So if you're wondering what the hell's the cameras about, that's what the cameras are about. So many of you have actually been through Box of Crayons programs before. Some of you, this is brand new. Those of you who have been through these before know how interactive it is. We're going to start right away. So stand up. Find somebody in the room that you don't know yet. You don't know yet. So go find somebody. I'll tell you what happens next. Perfect, very nice. So you're in the chit-chat mode, which is excellent, but I'm going to give you a bit of a more specific question, and here it is. Thinking about the last week or so, the last 7 days, what's been the high point and the low point of the last 7 days for you? High point and low point. Person with the longest hair gets to go first, okay? Have that conversation now. Beautiful, very nice, that's great. Step number one, because I'm going to give you, we've got 2 more questions to go on this, so in a minute I'm going to ask you to find somebody new to talk to that you don't know in the room, but before you go find your new person, I just want you to remind the person you're talking to of your name, because honestly they've already forgotten it, okay? And I want you to network here, so connect like that. Go find a new partner, please. Find a new partner for me. All right, perfect, great stuff. Different question this time, different question, and it's simply this. What's on your mind? So I want you to be thinking about, what are you excited about at the moment? What are you anxious about? What are you waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning about? What's kind of getting there and in your head? So this can be about work, it can be life outside work, I don't mind. But we'll say, what's on your mind? This time the tallest person gets to go first. I think it's you, Shay. Yeah. Beautiful. So we got 1 more question to go. So remind your current partner of your name. Go find somebody else in the room you don't know yet. But find a new partner. Very nice. Very good. I love this group. This is not going to be a problem getting you talking today. I can see that, and I love that. So here's the 3rd and final warm-up question, getting the conversation going, and it's simply this. It's a more personal one, so it depends where you want to go. What's the crossroads you're currently at? Yeah, I know, it's really juicy, if you want it to be. So you can go wherever you want with this, okay? You could be, I was talking to Peter when he came in, he's like, I think it's time to finally get the pink unicorn tattoo on my neck, okay? So, could be something like that, I don't know. It could be something at work. Do I need to make this call? Do I need to go that direction? Do I need to have that conversation with that person? It could be simply, do I need a 7th muffin to get me through the morning, okay? So the choice is yours, but the person who's traveled furthest to be here today gets to go first, okay? So have that conversation now. Wherever you are is perfect. Thank your partner. Grab a seat for me, please. So before we get into it, I probably wouldn't normally do this in a regular session like this, but it's useful just to get a little bit of context about why we're here, because it's a bit of an eclectic group here. So you probably got notice of this happening, pretty short notice, like it's happening in 3 weeks' time or 4 weeks' time, because there's been a certain degree of Box of Crayons scrambling. One TELUS is a really big client for ours. They're putting 5,000 people through this program this year. They're putting 20,000 people through our Coaching Habit program next year. So we're like delightedly freaking out about that. I mean, it's really, really exciting. And so what we knew we needed to do is we needed to run a program to get our experienced facilitators who are experienced in habit and our other half-day program called the feedback program up to speed in our Coaching for Great Work program. So you've actually got a number of Box of Crayons facilitators scattered around here. So if you're a BOC facilitator, just stick up your hand so people... So these people are going to be unnaturally good at all of this stuff, right? So when you're practicing with them and they're like, how do you do this so easily? It's like most of them have been training for a year or two or longer to actually be good at it. So you can just kind of, I don't know, kick him in the shins or like, feel free to try and handicap them in some way. We've also got some people who are just box of crayons people on the operations side or on the sales side in the room as well. So if you wouldn't mind sticking your hands up as well. Yeah, perfect. So these are folks who are, Tracy, you're not part of the box of crayons ops team yet. No, that's perfect. If you're applying for a job, we can talk. Like, seriously, we're growing our sales team, so we can definitely have a conversation here, but it hasn't happened yet. I haven't offered her, Fiona, I haven't offered her a job, I promise. So they're here to also get an immersion in this because we don't run this program quite as often as the others, so it's a chance to have them to see it and expose it as well. And then there's a kind of interesting mix of many of the rest of you. Most of you are actually in some way clients or past clients of ours. Janetta in particular, I'm delighted to see from TD Bank because actually TD Bank 8 years ago was our first really major client. You know, we put a lot of people through, and this is the first program that we put them through, and they liked it so much that they developed these other programs. So they were actually the genesis of the coaching habit and the feedback program. So I'm just grateful and thank you TD Bank for the vibe you're bringing into. So it's kind of nice to have you back in the room, so thank you. And folks from UACN and folks from Purdue and just people we've worked with before. So I'm grateful for all of you being here. Most of you therefore know what we're about. So at Box of Crayons we have a very specific focus. We teach 10-minute coaching so busy managers can build stronger teams and get better results. You know, my background is as a kind of OD guy. I'm about trying to make companies and organizations better places to work so you have more impact and you find work that's more meaning. And as an OD person, I'm naturally deeply suspicious of most training because I think it's pretty useless and it doesn't play a very good OD role, which is both daunting but also sets a standard that if we're going to do training, it has to be OD related, it has to be strategic. And what we've got really clear on is what we care about is changing people's behavior. Because when you change people's behavior, you start changing the culture. The bad news, of course, is that's hard. That's really hard. It's hard to get even people to remember anything in a training course, let alone to act differently. But what you'll see today is kind of a number of things that we've set up as part of our commitment to help change behavior. And part of that is just because we've tried to be really centered on the reality of busy managers' lives. So just really quickly, and then we'll get into the actual program. Here are the kind of the 5 or 6 reasons we think managers resist coaching. And how we therefore think about it. So of course the first thing your managers say is, honestly, I do not have time for this coaching stuff. I mean, I am so busy. I am working endlessly. I'm running around like a headless chicken. I've got a to-do list that's enormous. I've got a meeting schedule that's ridiculous. I don't have time for this coaching stuff because I've seen what it's like. It's, you know, 30-minute conversation, 40-minute conversation, hour-long conversation. Who has time for that? And of course, at Box of Crayons, we go, nobody has time for that. You're absolutely right. And in fact, if you can't coach in 10 minutes or less, you just don't have time for coaching. And of course, the response to that is, I still don't have time for your coaching. I mean, yay, 10 minutes, but my schedule is still back to back to back. I can't add coaching to anything. And of course, at Box of Crayons, we go, no, you're right. You don't have time to add coaching to anything. But for us, coaching is not additive. It's about transforming what you're currently doing to be more coach-like. So it's a transformative piece, not an additive piece. It's not an additional burden or responsibility. It's changing the way that you work. So people go, well, that's interesting, but honestly, here's the third objection. I do not want to be a coach. I mean, I've met coaches. They're weird, right? They're all touchy-feely. They all hang out in the HR department or the learning and development. They've all drunk the Kool-Aid going, oh, coaching's amazing. And they're like, I'm just a normal person, right? I'm trying to do normal things. I'd like to make my team work better. I'd like to have more impact. I'd like to go home earlier and see my kids. Like, don't turn me into a coach. I really don't want that. And of course, we go, you do not want to be a coach. You are absolutely right. That's the last thing you want to be. There's a ton of them already. However, you want to be you. You want to be a manager and leader who is more coach-like. And that's actually a great source of relief to a lot of people. They're like, oh, you're not turning me into something weird, but being more coach-like. Okay, I'm interested, but of course then the fourth piece is like, well, what the hell does that even mean? I mean, this coaching thing is a lot of jargon, you talked about a lot, but what does it mean? And for us, and this is the behavior change piece, for us being more coach-like is simply this: can you stay curious a little bit longer? Can you rush to action and advice giving just a little bit more slowly? Because what we found is that most managers and leaders are advice giving maniacs. I mean, they love it, right? They're just like, as soon as you start talking, the advice monster pops up in your head going, I'm about to add some value here by just telling you stuff. I don't know what's going on, I don't understand the problem, I don't know the people involved, but I've got some ideas about what you need to do to fix it. So we're like, okay, so it's about slowing down the rush to action advice, staying curious a little bit longer. And then they go, well, okay, so it's not additive, I can do it fast, it's about a simple behavior change, not something weird. We're trying to unweird coaching for people. But then they go, honestly, what's in it for me? I mean, I get why this is good for my organization, right? People who are more focused and more engaged. I get it's good for my team because I'm giving them in a very concentrated way, a way to be more sufficient, more autonomous, have more impact in the work that they do. I get both of that, but what's in it for me? And what we say to them is, look, if you get to be more coach-like, you actually get to work less hard, but have more impact. And that doesn't always convince everybody, but it at least makes them curious, because they would like that. And it means that we're into the conversation about, well, maybe this could be useful for us. And what you'll see as we go through this program is, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people to go, oh, coaching is an everyday practical thing that's useful for me as well as useful for the people around me. This is worth trying to do something different about. And that's the setup, and that gets us into this program. So take a look at your folder here. I want to show you what this is like. What I'd like you to do to start off with actually is write your name on the front of it, because as those of you who've been in these programs before, you know I'll be moving you around. I want you to keep track of the folder. So name on the front. And after you've got your name on the front, open it up and you'll see in there a little brown envelope. I suggest you put your name on the front of that, because this has the entire content of the day in it. Okay, it's all here. So this is the thing you definitely want to hold on to. And if you open it up, you're going to see 3 cards. And these are the 3 critical things that we want to teach you for you to go away with. We're going to teach you just 3 key coaching moments. One of the things that we do in our programs is we actually don't teach a coaching model. Now, there's plenty of coaching models out there. You probably stumble across the GROW model and maybe other models as well. Actually, when we started at TD Bank, the call to action was, you know what? We think there's at least 17 active different coaching models alive in different parts of the bank, because they're everywhere. Everybody comes up with their own coaching model. For us, models are, I mean, I love models. I geek out on models, but they're not that useful as a teaching tool because most people never remember a model. So we're like 3 key coaching moments. The first one is the blue one. I think this is in some ways the heart of this program. It's about getting clear on what the challenge is. Because in our experience, most people are working really hard to busily solve the wrong problem. Because I think the first challenge that shows up is the real challenge. It almost never is. So we're going to get to this before lunch. Then the second coaching moment is creating possibilities, the green card coaching as we call it. Part of my background, in fact the first job I had when I finally stumbled out of university, was working in the world of innovation and creativity for a while. So I spent 6 or 7 years running brainstorms, helping people be creative, helping invent stuff. I played a minor role in helping to invent stuffed crust pizza for Pizza Hut, which actually was the moment where I went, if this is the peak moment of my career, it is a terrible career. Because I don't want that to be the best thing I've ever done in my life. It's contribute more pizza to the world. More not very good pizza to the world. But I do have a lot of experience about how to rapidly generate new possibilities and new ideas. I'm going to tell you why that matters. I'm going to give you some fast tools to help with that. And then the third coaching moment is sparking action. So it's one thing to know what the challenge is. It's one thing to have good ideas about how to tackle it. But unless you do something about it, nothing changes. So how do you have a conversation that moves the action forward, that sets up accountability in an appropriate way? And that's what red card coaching is about. We get to that towards the end of the day. So those are the 3 key coaching moments. There's other stuff I'm teaching as well, but that's the core content. So put that back in the envelope for me. And then I just want you to pull out the coaching cards, the 3 key coaching cards. You know, one of my biases is I think most corporate training is pretty terrible. It's a pretty terrible experience. And that starts off with people being given a white 3-ring binder full of slides. I mean, like, wow, that's going to go off the top of my shelves and never be looked at again for the rest of my life until I move offices and decide to recycle it. So we want our collateral to feel and look and be different and be useful for people. So step number 1, if you wouldn't mind, just write your name and today's date on the top of worksheet number 1. That way, at least when you do come to recycle this, you'll remember what year you did this program in, at a minimum. And we'll be moving our way through all of these worksheets as we go through the day. But I will point you now just to worksheet number 4, and you'll see the numbers in the bottom left-hand corner of each one. It's just a big blank sheet of paper, okay? And it's a place for you to capture all your insights and ahas. And I'll constantly be directing you to this page, because I would love you to walk away with this page full or partially full of the key things you want to remember. So those insights aren't scattered through pages and pages of notes. They're like, no, I've captured the essence right here. That's what I want to remember. So I'll keep taking you back there. But for now, I'll take you back to worksheet number 1. You've got your name and the date of today. Today's date is the 2nd of May. And you'll see underneath it a box that says check-in. So we're going to do a quick check-in. So more questions. Here we go. So 4 questions. First 3 questions, you just need to give yourself a number between 1 and 7. Okay? 4th question, I'm going to ask you to do a little bit more. Here's the very first question. On a scale of 1 to 7, how engaged and active do you plan to be with me today? How engaged and active? So, you know, I mean, 1 is absolutely unengaged and completely inactive. Honestly, I was out partying till 4 a.m. last night. I had too many Chardonnays. I'm a little hungover. I'm sitting as far back as I can, and I'm hoping to have a little nap, maybe get my pulse rate down into the low 30s. Okay, that's what a 1 looks like. 7, on the other hand, is like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. I'm so up for this. I'm going to volunteer, ask questions, push back on the stuff I disagree with. I'm going to show up absolutely, fully, and completely. So give yourself a number there between 1 and 7. And in fact, I'm going to ask you to do one other thing. Whatever number you've given yourself, and I don't mind, I'm not going to ask you, but write down a behavior that reflects the number you just gave yourself. What's the behavior that reflects the number? You know, if it's 2, it's like I'm going to check my email constantly. If it's 6, it's like I will go first if I get the chance to do it, perhaps. You know, whatever it means for you. Lovely. So that's the first question. How engaged and active do you plan to be? And you've written down a behavior that reflects it. Second question is this. How much risk are you prepared to take with me today? How much risk? Because let's face it, there's always a degree of risk when you're trying to learn something new, particularly when you practice something new, right? Particularly when you're doing it with a bunch of colleagues who you know or half know or don't know at all, and you're like, I'm trying to preserve some sense of dignity and status here. So you get to choose how much risk you want to take. 1, of course, is no risk whatsoever. You're hoping to learn nothing new, think nothing new, meet anybody new. Hopefully this whole workshop will flow over you and leave you completely unaffected. 7, on the other hand, is like, oh, I love this stuff. I mean, I have no boundaries, right? I will share the traumatic incident from my childhood that makes me cry a little bit. When we do the naked thing over there, you're the first to be getting your clothes off, okay? That's what the 7 looks like. So give yourself a score there. Yeah, at this stage, there's typically some people go, I was just going to reduce my number a little bit here, and you know, I don't mind that at all. Here's the third question for you. How much do you care about the experience of the other people here in the room with you? How much do you care about their experience over the rest of the day? 1, I mean, I hate these people. I mean, I don't even know them particularly well, but I know I don't like these people at all, so whatever. 7, on the other hand, is colleagues, peers, friends, soon-to-be friends. I'll show up in a way that makes sure that they have a good day as well. I'll contribute to the good of the room by how I choose to show up. So engaged, how much risk, how much do you care about the experience of others? The fourth and final question requires just a little bit more, and it's simply this: what do you want to get out of this workshop? You know, you're all giving me a day. It's not a day you're going to get back. I want you to leave here at 4:30, which is our target finish time, going, I'm so glad I showed up, that was fantastic. So what are 1 or 2 or 3 things that you're definitely looking for, so that come 4:30 you're like, I know this is a good investment of my time. So write down between 1 and 3 things. What do you want to get out of this workshop? It could be something about, actually, I'm going to give you this slide, because I'm going to tell you some of the stuff we're actually going to cover, so this might prime some of you. How you can work less hard and have more impact, so you heard me talk about that already. What the best coaching question in the world is. 3 ways to coach less than 10 minutes, I've kind of shown you what those are. How to embrace laziness as a powerful tool. The 1 act that doubles the chance of doing what you want to do, and other stuff as well, but that's some of the stuff that's going to be showing up today. But you may have other things that you're looking for. And when you're done, and when the person next to you is done as well, what I'd like you to do is just turn to them, have a quick conversation. Start with the last question first. What are you hoping to get from today? But then if you want to, feel free to share your numbers as well. So just turn to a partner next to you, have a quick conversation when you're both ready. Beautiful. Lovely. You know why we do this? I bet you can guess, which is, and this is kind of a meta comment and aside, most people when they show up to a workshop, they don't really know why they're showing up. It's said in their calendar, be in this room at this time. They haven't really got their head in the game. And what we're doing in all of this, in this lead up, is giving people a chance to go, okay, I'm warmed up, I'm talking, and I've decided how I choose to show up. So it's a way of saying to people, you get to choose how you want to show up here. I don't mind, the choice is yours. But asking the question makes it now a mindful choice about how they may want to show up. So look, I don't mind what numbers you gave yourself, that's your choice entirely. But I'm curious to know what you're looking to get from today. So maybe hear from 2 or 3 of you. What are you hoping for? Yeah, please, Dan.
I'm really looking forward to incorporating this into daily life. I like how you talked about it being a habit and a daily thing. So that's what I'm doing.
Perfect. So some things you can just bring into your daily life. I love that. That's great. What else? Cheryl.
Yeah, I realized I thought, well, I don't supervise anyone, so I can't use it, but I realized I have clients.
Right.
So I'm looking at application with my clients.
Perfect. You have children?
Yes.
You have children. Believe me, this stuff, I mean, it's cool. I'm a happily child-free man, so I don't have any stand to talk about this, but we get comments all the time from people who've read the book about this really works with my kids as well. So think of this about a good tool to interact with other human beings. So if you do interact with those human beings, this stuff will help with that. Very good. What else are you looking for? Please, yeah, at the back. Yeah, you blinked in a way that kind of it was almost the same as sticking your hand up. Exactly.
Yeah, so I manage a team of 40 people and have for 3 years, so I'm kind of just looking for like new inspiration for moment.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Or a way of firing 20 people, so you don't have any possible
I manage 5 right now.
All right, perfect.
No, I'm just kidding.
Perfect. Tracy, did you put your hand up?
Yeah, I was just saying, making it more of a habit and
Yeah.
like recognizing the triggers, because as a sales manager as well, I tend to just go into tell and fix all the time
Of course.
because we just get so busy, and then just pausing and like so recognizing the triggers and when I always just want to jump in, asking the most important 3-word question.
Perfect.
Because
Nice.
I tend to I already have that little bit of a panic moment
Yeah.
when I know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and then I want to refer to my cue cards for what am I supposed to ask?
Yeah, perfect.
What are my questions to get them talking more?
And Tracy, I know you've read the book and been to the coaching habit and feedback program, so you're also primed nicely, but I love your commitment around, in the end, what matters here is your behavior change and doing things differently. And so often in training, you worry about, do they remember the content?
Yeah.
I'm like, you can forget all the content, but if you walk out of here with 2 or 3 questions that you're starting to build into a habit, that's a win for you and a win for us. You know, so I love that. Lovely. Any other final comments about what you're looking for? Yeah, please.
I think I'm a little selfish as well. In addition to the content that you take us through, I'm facilitating myself. So
Brilliant.
I'm going to take back a lot from the group
Yeah.
and you, Michael.
You know, I was hoping somebody would say that because I am a good facilitator and through practice and through very deliberate teaching myself. So for those of you who do teach and do facilitate, feel free to kind of be operating at that meta level of watching what I do, look what I like, what I don't like, and going, I'm going to adapt some of that. I mean, very quick facilitating tip. Well, let me actually ask you, if there's one thing I've done as a facilitator already that you've liked, what would it be?
I love I've been through your Terra session, right?
Yes.
So I'm looking at it, everything in action. So I love the fact that you're creating an environment which is risk-free, you're giving people choices, and
Perfect.
allowing everybody to interact. So
Yeah.
it's a reinforcement.
Very nice. I mean, I'll give you one tiny facilitating thing that people won't notice unless you tell them. If I want you to look at the slides, I look at the slides. I go, look at these. These are the things I want you to look at now. And I'm only ever getting you to look at the slides when I directly look at it and I point to it. Because I know if I say to you now, hey, look at the slide because there's something really interesting on the slides right now, you all keep looking at me because I'm like actually more interesting than the slides. Thank goodness, right? Right, so if you want people to look at the slides, you got to go like that and I deliberately turn my back to you so you're like, well, he's boring now, so I'll look at the slides instead. So just a tiny little thing that helps to drive the facilitation. Hey, how you doing? I'm Michael. No, I knew you were going to be late. You told us that. There's a seat for you right there. We call it the volunteer chair, so that's perfect. And when you're ready, I'll get you to pull out a pen and put your bags at the back of the room because we move around a whole bunch. So far, you've missed almost nothing other than a few bit of light humor, but nothing much more than that. So great. Head in the game, you know what you're looking for, you've chosen to show up in a certain way, fantastic. One thing I forgot to tell you about in the folder, it's just this little notebook here. If you're wondering what that is, we use these kind of 4 worksheets on 2 sheets of paper in our half-day programs and they get filled up. Some of you will be writers. You know, you like to write down everything and there's probably not enough room on the worksheets for a full day writing down everything. So those of you who need overflow, this is your overflow booklet, okay? So you can write whatever you want to in the booklet there. Perfect. So before we get going, look, I've got two rules of engagement, only 2 rules. The first is this rule. It's the how will I resist checking my email rule, because you know the force is strong around that. I've cunningly got most of you moving your bags out of the way so you don't even have access to your phone, but we have some good breaks, morning break, lunch break, afternoon break. If you really need to check your phone, you're adults, you get to do that, but I'd encourage you not to and put them aside if you can. And this one, it actually matters more. It's the confidentiality rule. You know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I would love you to take whatever I teach you here and share it, teach it, talk about it. But because you're working with real people about real stuff, what you learn about and with your colleagues needs to stay confidential with them. So if you wouldn't mind, hands up. I'll keep my colleagues and my new colleagues' stuff confidential, please. I need hands from everybody. Yeah, perfect. That's all good. Fantastic. So, coaching for great work, that's what this is called. And as you heard when I went through that whole, well, what do we even mean when we say coaching? There's a bit of confusion about, well, what does that mean? How are you using the word coaching? So we have to ask this question, well, what is coaching? What does it mean to us? And in my lazy way, because I'm role modeling laziness for you, which is one of our principles here, I'm going to get you to be doing the thinking and the work here. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to go find a partner that you haven't yet spoken to, and I'd like you to pair up with that partner, sit down with them, bring your worksheet and pen with you, and I'll tell you what happens next. So stand up, find a new person to work with, sit down when you're ready to go. Perfect, I love that. You can stay standing up if you want, you can stay sitting down if you want, the choice is yours. This is going to take about 10 to 12 minutes, so whatever you're comfortable with. Here's how it works. What I want you to do individually is to think about a time when you have been well coached in your life. So somebody has asked the good questions, given you the push, given you the encouragement, challenged you in the appropriate way, done that thing that you walked away going, that really made a difference. I want you to tell your partner the story of that time you were well coached. I want you to listen to your partner's story. Here's your task. Between the two of you, you need to come up with 7 things that your coaches did that made this effective coaching. Now you'll see on worksheet number 1 in the first column, there's a little box that says what I already know. That's going to be the place that between the two of you, you get to write down your 7 takeaways. Okay, this is what our coaches did. You're going to have 5 minutes in total for this exercise, 5 minutes. So that means you've got to be pretty succinct about, I'm going to tell you this story. Let's make it 7 minutes, because hell, I'm that kind of generous guy, all right? 7 minutes, you've got to tell your stories, and then from your stories, you've got to distill the 5 things that, I'm getting confused with my numbers, aren't I? 7 minutes, 5 things, that's what we'll do. 7 minutes, tell your stories, distill what they did, and come between the two of you 5 really practical, tactical things your coaches did that made it so effective. Does that make sense? Let's say that the best looking person gets to tell their story first, okay? Your time starts now, take it away. Okay, perfect. Very nice. So you've been working with your partner, you've distilled somewhere between, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 10 things that your coaches did. Here's what we're going to do. We're just going to go around the room really quickly and hear some of the things that popped up. Here's my strong encouragement. If you hear somebody else's thing and you're like, damn, I wish I'd thought of that, steal it and add it to your list. Because what you want to get here is a list of what for you is great characteristics of great coaches. Okay, and that could be the stuff they do, the attitude they have, the presence they have, whatever it is for you. But I'd love you to kind of steal other good things that pop up, because we're going to hear a bunch of good stuff. So let's go over here first. Start us off with 1 or 2 things. What did your coaches do that made it good coaching?
They were authentic.
Authentic?
And they built a personal connection.
Perfect. So how did they build a personal connection?
Asking the right questions
Nice.
and relating.
Perfect. So a sense of connection.
Yes.
And how do you know when somebody's being authentic? What's the clue there?
I think the emotion that comes out of the individual as they're addressing you, whether it's their
Got it.
body language, their speech, their tone.
Very nice. Fantastic. Tracy, do you
How
want to?
you make them feel.
Got
People
it.
remember how you make them feel.
That's right. Classic sales conversation right there. Which is like perfect. I love it. No, that's good. That's exactly. I mean, there's a really strong correlation between people who are great salespeople and people who are great coaches, because the one thing that you learn in sales training, if there's one thing, is stop selling stuff and just stay curious longer. So when you do make a recommendation, you know what you're recommending. And honestly, it's the same with coaching, which is like it's never to say advice is bad. There's a really good place for advice, just not as fast as you think. Just slow down the rush to advice. There's a really nice overlap between the sales approach and the coaching approach. 1 or 2 things here. What would you add, Jenna?
Yeah, we were just saying that they were actively listening to you and fighting advice, like you just said.
Perfect.
And genuinely care
Nice.
about what you're saying.
Yeah.
Do you want to add them?
Yeah, so one thing, going to the authenticity, they're genuine.
Yes.
And,
Nice. Genuine.
Asking insightful questions to really make you think about things and not telling them.
Perfect. So I love that you're all, I'm glad that you're all going questions, because I'd have been disappointed if nobody had picked up on my particular passion about good questions. But I love the focus on that. Sherry, do you want to add anything?
Let's see. I think the self-discovery, the questions helped us widen our lens.
Beautiful. Yeah, very nice. We'll keep moving. I know you got more. Give me one thing, Dan.
Yeah, so asking what I think, rather, because I would often go with looking for approval. And
Nice.
So, yeah, so it's turning around and saying, well, what do you think?
Excellent. So continuing to get you do the work. I mean, our 3 principles, which we won't really dig into today, but our 3 principles, and you'll see them printed on the worksheet: be lazy, be curious, be often. Right? Be curious, you get. It's about managing the advice monster. Being often is the insight that every interaction can be a bit more coach-like. It doesn't have to be a formal coaching session. It's every time you bump into somebody, you can stay a bit more coach-like. But being lazy is that piece going, no, I'm going to get you to do the work here, because I like to see you sweat, and I know that this is the way you learn. Cool. One thing from here, this pair, what would you add?
I have looking at strengths. So the coach that I work with is always working on my strengths.
That's fantastic. Emphasizing the strengths. So Marcus Buckingham's sort of work. Anything to add?
I trusted your ideas. They trusted your ideas.
Perfect. And if I can add to that, even when they're like, that may be a bad idea, sometimes they're willing to let you go with it. Somebody once said there are 2 types of mistakes. There's above the waterline mistakes and below the waterline mistakes. And a great leader, manager, coach often allows you to make the above the waterline mistakes because that's how experience happens. That didn't work, that didn't try, that was less successful. And help you avoid the below the waterline mistakes, which gets you fired because the ship sinks, right? And knowing the difference is really important. Anything from this pair?
Yeah, I was going to say something maybe a little bit different, an actual like behavioral thing that we both have seen.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the curious, is that both of our circumstances, we had great coaches and mentors who would take us physically out of our environment.
Beautiful.
Pull us out of an office, say, let's go for a walk and talk.
Yeah.
And it's just always seems to be one of the ways it's really good technique. So it's a behavioral piece.
Yeah, it's really smart. You know, particularly if you're in an organization where there's the kind of power structures, often the power structure kind of shows up in more locations and in different locations. So summoning somebody into your office and then go, I'm going to coach you, there's a context of power and a certain relationship there. So breaking that is a really powerful way of equalizing the conversation and making it feel more powerful. Yeah, very good. Anything to add over here? It's a great list so far.
Yeah, so both of our situations were actually about pre-coaching
Nice.
as opposed to post-coaching.
What is pre-coaching?
So just when we were both in our situations,
Mhm.
it was kind of amping us up for, you know, what we were about to walk into and giving us confidence.
Oh, nice.
To be able to, you know, go and present that presentation or go into that
Got
meeting
it.
and lean in. So kind of
Love
understanding
it.
pre as opposed to afterwards.
Yeah, so it wasn't just the debrief, it was like being the cheerleader to kind of get your head in the game and show up in a certain way. Fantastic, that's very nice.
You talked about kind of treating, one of the things was like treating that other person like they're equal.
Yes.
So,
Beautiful. There will often be a status difference in terms of seniority and the like, but a sense of that we are two equal human beings having a conversation together is a really powerful way to drive engagement. Yeah, Susan.
And let me think out loud. And thinking back on it, I can't even remember what questions she was asking. I just remember I talked and talked and talked a lot.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's one of the anxieties you sometimes have as a coach is you're like, I don't know, is that a good question? Oh, I've already asked that question. Can I ask it again? But my friend Jamie, who is one of the facilitators we have, he says, look, when you're the coach, you're in the land of the question, but they're in the land of the answer. They're just trying to figure out the answer. They're not really analyzing your question. They're just trying to engage with your question. So that's fantastic. Yeah, what would you add?
I would add, I love what Peter said about his coach gave him, there was silence.
Yeah.
So plenty of space for him to really sit
Beautiful.
in the question.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
think about what his response was.
That's cool, isn't it? I mean, we all know this, but we all get that anxiety when you ask a question, and sometimes, you know, you wait and you wait and you wait, and sometimes as long as 3/4 of a second goes by and they haven't answered, and you're like, oh my God, panic! But silence is such a powerful coaching tool. If you just sit there, as anxious as you might feel, they will crack first, right? So they'll answer the question, so I love that. And Lee, anything to add?
Yeah, so just one thing one of my previous managers did was focus not just on, you know, problems or challenges you have, but also the successes you've had in the past week.
Nice.
So you would always say, tell me something that's worked in the past week and the challenge you're having. So
Perfect.
you're not just focusing on the problems.
Kind of connecting back to that, building on the strengths piece around that. So that's fantastic. So look, that is a really great list of stuff. And the reason we do this in our programs is because what we found is if we come in and go, let me tell you what coaching is, it just inherently creates a point of resistance for people to go, well, that's not what I think about as coaching. What we do with our clients when we have this conversation is go, you tell us what coaching is. And we get a list like this almost every time. Plus or minus 5%, they're pretty much the same, but it's a great list. And we go, as I'm doing right now, exactly. That is what coaching is. What today is about is not teaching you coaching, because you know what coaching is. It's about giving you the tools to actually be more coach-like and implement some of the stuff so you can do it more easily, more quickly, more consistently. So let me just build on a couple of things that you've got. I'm just going to be, in some ways, repeating what you've already said, but I put them into a couple of pictures. Here's the coaching cycle. This is actually on your worksheet number 1. It's just kind of the dynamic of what actually happens when you coach. What you hope, and this is starting at the top, you generate a new insight, either about yourself or about the situation at hand. Good question will often be the generator of insight. What you hope is that insight leads to positive behavior change, which is a fancy phrase for action. They do something as a result of the insight. Insight leads to action. Action leads to increased impact. And then in a perfect world, that impact then gets examined and you have a conversation about it, which then generates new insight about yourself and about the situation. So this becomes a virtuous circle. So that just picks up on a bunch of things that you're already talking about. And then I'll give you this definition, which you've heard me say already, which is, can we all stay curious a little bit longer? Can we rush to action and advice giving a little bit more slowly? You heard me say that before, but here it is up on the screen for you. What I realize is this isn't actually written down on your worksheet, so if you happen to like this, you'll need to write it down. If you're like, whatever, then we can just skip on by it pretty quickly. So, let me just check my notes here. I've got a couple of other tools that I want to give you, plus we're actually going to do a little bit of practice around coaching before we get to the coffee break. On worksheet number 1, you're going to see in the top right-hand corner the 3 Ps. I want to talk about the 3 Ps as a useful coaching tool and a useful insight to say that every interaction you have, every conversation you have, has the possibility of 3 different kind of facets to that conversation. The conversation can be about the project at hand. So that's often the task. It's the thing that shows up most often, typically, when somebody goes, here's the thing I'm working on, it's hard for me that I'm wrestling with. It's a thing. It's this situation, it's this context, it's this piece that's going on. Another way of coming at it is talking less about the project and more about the actual people involved. Here's my challenge in this relationship. Here's the thing that's going on with him. So the person often takes it a little bit deeper. And then the third element to this is patterns. And this is your own patterns. It's like, what are my patterns of behavior that are getting in the way of me achieving and having the impact that I want? That's the deepest kind of level that you might go to. And you'll see on this side over here, I've just tracked the move from coaching for performance for coaching for development. Coaching for performance in most of our organizations is pretty much we've got to get stuff done. It's a getting stuff done. In fact, often in most organizations it shows up kind of command and control. This is what you need to do, here's my advice. Slightly more polite perhaps than command and control, but the same basic principles. But for us, coaching for performance is actually about how do you focus on the work that needs to be done, the thing that needs to be solved. Coaching for development moves to a conversation about the person who's doing the work. That's actually the more powerful place to coach from. My guess is that for almost everybody here, when you were telling a story of a time when you were well coached, it was mostly a coaching for development conversation that you're sharing, not a coaching for performance moment. And what I find is that for most of us, we spend most of our topics and our conversations up here in the coaching for performance piece. And part of our commitment at Box of Crayons is to try and have coaching for development conversations show up more quickly, more easily, more regularly, so that people not only get stuff done, but they grow and expand into their potential. And that's what that's about. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about a couple of challenges that you're facing right now at work. Because we are going to be doing actual coaching together. This isn't theory, this isn't role play. You're going to get some real coaching from some of the people here in the room. And I want you to be primed, ready to be thinking about what would it be useful for me to be coached on. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about, for each one of these topics, each one of these headings, at least one topic that might be useful for you to get some coaching on. You don't have to get coaching on any of them, but this is just a priming little exercise. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes for this. You know, I might say for my project, it might be, what would be a good project piece for me at the moment? It might be a piece around, well, we just had our senior leadership retreat over the last 2 days, so it might be actually figuring out what the implications are of the last 2 days' discussions with my senior team about a direction of Box of Crayons. My personal stuff might be, okay, there's one person on my team that I'm having a struggle with because I'm not happy with how they're performing right now, so that might be the thing for me. The pattern might be actually, honestly, I'm not that good at giving tough feedback. So the pattern I need to work on is how do I get more courageous about having that tough conversation with that particular person. So that's just what it might mean for you. But I just want you to scan your life at the moment and go, okay, what's a project coaching topic? What's a person coaching topic? What's a pattern? My pattern, person, topic. And write down one or two of those things against each one of those things in the top right-hand corner of page 1. Sorry, Leanne. I was busy role modeling, knocking over my cup of tea, so when everybody else does it, they feel okay about it. So, looks like people are getting close to being done on that. That's fantastic. Maybe 30 seconds to finish up. Those people are just jotting down final comments. So, here's what we're going to do. We're actually going to flex our coaching muscles and see how this goes. So you're going to work with the partner you've just been talking to, okay? So some of you move, but some of you are already connected. That's great. What you might want to do is actually sit down for this. It's more comfortable sitting down. And if you want to, feel free to kind of separate out a little bit more so you have the privacy that you would like in this coaching, because this is a real coaching conversation that's about to get going. So find the place you want to be, and I'll tell you what happens next. Set yourselves up. Perfect. All right. How are we doing? We're good to go. You guys working as a 3 over there. Perfect. So Cheryl, knowing that you know some of this, you might pull out of this and just act as an observer if that's all right. That's great. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some coaching. Person with the biggest feet gets to go first. You get to ask the questions first. But you know what? You're both going to do this. So who's asking the questions first? Perfect. Who's answering the questions first? Very nice. Okay, good. So look, person answering the questions first. Here's the rules of engagement. You just get to answer the questions as best you can. Your job is not to be slippery, evasive, annoying, distracting. It's to show up and get some good coaching. You're going to get coached on one of the topics you've just written down. So you get to pick which one. But it's a real piece of real coaching about one of the things that you've just written down as a potential topic for yourself here. Your choice entirely. Okay, that's all that's going to happen. You're going to coach for 4 minutes each. Only 4 minutes. So easy peasy. If you're asking the questions, hands up if you're asking the questions first. Perfect, okay. Here is your script for the 4 minutes. Just 2 questions, asked twice. So here we go. Whoop, there we go. First of all, you're going to say, okay, and you don't even need to know what they're talking about. You're just going to go, okay, you picked one of your topics. What's the real challenge here for you? You're going to nod. You're going to listen. After they finish talking, you're going to go, great, what else? What else is a challenge here for you? And then you're going to go, okay, what else is a challenge here for you? And then you're going to lean in a little closer and go, okay, so what's the real challenge here for you? Now here's the one rule with this. This is your entire script for the first 4 minutes. Sure, you're allowed to add small encouraging words of meaningless encouragement, like, yep, okay, nice, good, sure, okay, very nice, fine, good. But other than that, that's your entire script for the 4 minutes. And we're just going to give this a go because I want you to get a little bit of coaching in before we actually take a break for the coffee break. Does that make sense? Anybody going, I have no idea what's going on here. Perfect. So 4 minutes, you know who's asking the questions first. You know you're picking one of the topics you've written down to get a little bit of coaching on. Your 4 minutes starts now. Take it away, please. Perfect. 4 minutes done. So first thing I want you to do, look your partner in the eye and say, you're awesome and you're doing great. Perfect. This gets progressively less awkward as we go through the day. It's always like weird the first time through. Before we swap roles, just quickly, what did you notice or learn the first time through? What did you see? Tell me more about that. What do you mean it works?
Well, I'm like, it was less of a coordinated conversation, and I wasn't really sure how much someone who doesn't know anything about the situation could help. And actually, I got a very good takeaway. I made a note.
Perfect. Okay, so you're like, nice job, fantastic. What else did you notice? Yeah.
I think it helped to filter down the niche.
Yeah.
So I started a bit, it wasn't completely broad, but a bit broad, and with the what else, it made you just keep thinking, okay, someone else. And so it helped me to distill
Right.
what I needed to.
Yeah, so you notice that kind of like focusing and narrowing of the topic. Fantastic. What else did you notice? Yeah, please, Cheryl.
I was observer role, so it was nice to watch. And what I noticed was that by the time we were up to the fourth question,
Yeah.
it had changed from a topic with someone else to how it affected you. It
Right.
came into her.
Brilliant. So part of what you're seeing there is the shift from coaching for performance to coaching for development. So it moves a little bit from the focus on that other thing to what's my role in this, okay? And the power of that, just so you know, is adding for you onto the end of the question, because it just keeps the spotlight on the person in front of you. Fantastic. What, anything else? A final comment about what you noticed before we swap over? Yeah, please, Peter.
We actually ended up doing another round of And What Else
Yeah.
after our second What's
Right.
the Real Challenge for you, and there was still more.
There's still more, exactly. Let me ask quickly, did anybody notice that the answer to the second What's the Real Challenge was actually different from the answer to the first one? Yeah, so lots of heads nodding. Here's why that's important. If you'd started to try and solve that first challenge, you'd be solving the wrong challenge. When you add to that your advice actually isn't as good as you think it is, now you're offering up slightly crappy advice to solve the wrong problem, okay? Not a strong leadership stance in general, all right? Did anybody notice when you're in to the coaches, did anybody notice the kind of hunger to try and offer up some ideas, some advice? It's incredible, isn't it? Like, you don't know what the hell is going on. You're 2 minutes into a conversation and you're like, the advice monster's up out of the dark going, oh, this is awesome, I'm gonna help out here, I wanna tell them stuff. And so much of the discipline of this is actually going, can you stay curious a little bit longer? So we're just going to swap roles now. Swap roles, 4 minutes, really straightforward. You know the rules, you know the script. Your time starts now. Take it away, 4 minutes. Very nice. Step number 1, you know how it goes. Look your partner in the eye and say, you're awesome and you're doing great. And what did you learn second time through? What did you notice, if anything?
Just how the challenge gets refined.
Right. Yeah, how quickly the challenge gets refined. And this is important because we are so easily seduced into thinking the first challenge is the thing. And you know, it's not long. It's like, I'm actually giving you 3.5 minutes just to stay curious a little bit longer to see if just pushing on that challenge shifts it a little bit, makes it a little tighter, a little more personal, a little more important, before you actually move into trying to get into action to fix it. Great stuff. Thanks, Desiree. What else? Yeah, please.
I think it was like the roles were changed. I had to, bring myself back to say, like, Robin, don't say anything. Like,
Right.
tell the coach.
Yeah.
And like read what you're supposed to say, because I wanted to, give him advice or talk more into a
Yeah.
situation.
And when you say give him advice, you just mean give him advice. It's not inverted commas. It's just like, I just want to give you advice.
Like
Yeah, perfect.
outsider advice onto
Yeah.
the situation.
Perfect. So outside advice. And remember, there's a really good place for that sometimes. But if you just get them to do a little bit more work up front, sometimes you happen what happened in the corner there, which is like, I got the insight I needed. I'm already got clear. I don't need your advice. I'm actually more empowered and more insightful because I figured it out by myself. That's part of the be lazy piece that you're experiencing. Yeah.
So I found it hard not to bring it back to me as a coach and be like, I have that exact same problem. Let
Yeah.
me tell you what I do. So
Yeah.
also being kind of selfish, wanting to bring it to me, and then also giving so many recommendations. and
Right.
advice.
And part of the subtle piece around why coaching is difficult or being more coach-like is you have higher status when you're giving advice. You feel smarter, you feel better, you feel in control, you feel like you're adding value. Honestly, even though your advice isn't that great, it kind of just feels better. And honestly, when you're asking questions, you're stepping into a place of ambiguity and uncertainty. Was that a good question? Did it land? What are they going to say? Do they know anything? I mean, Dan, really? Are you going to be able to figure this out by yourself? I barely know you, but seriously, yeah, you got all of that going on. But what coaching is this is really a form of servant leadership. You're willing to step into a place of discomfort. You're willing to empower that other person by giving up some of your power in the service of them immediately, but in your service as well in the medium term. Because as you do that, they grow in competence and confidence and autonomy and all that stuff that you want. Love it. When we get back, we're going to talk really briefly about habits, and then we're going to get into blue card coaching. So I'm going to say a 15-minute break. Actually, I'm going to say a 16.5-minute break. So what that means is back here at 10:40. 10:40, ready to go. There's a vast amount of food there because Yasmin is the over-caterer, who's our head of ops. So please eat some of it. And teas and coffee there. Manuel will help you out.